Hello everyone, welcome back. In our previous lecture, we have discussed about the organization of the body, and in which we have covered the first topic, that is the skeleton, that is the bony framework of the body. And in today's lecture, we are going to discuss about the cavities of the body where different organs are located, their walls and their contents as well as functions of these body cavities. So before moving to the definition of body cavities, we should know why nature placed all the organs in separate body cavities. Why are not all the organs placed together? In order to understand this, let us learn this with example. For example, when we breathe in, the lungs in the thoracic cavity expand. Similarly, when we breathe out, the lungs in the thoracic cavity, they shrink. They need space to shrink and to expand. So when they need this space, they should be placed in the area where this space is available. So this space is available in the thoracic cavity, so they are placed in the thoracic cavity. So this is one for function one, that is why they need this space for proper function. Second example, अगर हम digestive tract की बात करें, digestive tract में continuous movements होते हैं. So there should be space available for these continuous movements, like peristalsis होती है और food contents जब pass होते हैं from stomach to small intestine to large intestine and so on. यहाँ थर्ड अगर हम एग्जांपल लेंगे इसमें brain is protected in cranial cavity. So cranial cavity क्या करते हैं? It gives protection to brain. So brain को ये particular protection मिली due to because it is placed in the cranial cavity. Otherwise अगर ये किसी और cavity में होता तो due to small injury in day-to-day life जो होती है तो it could have led to serious complications. So that is why nature placed organs in spaces, we call them as cavities, for protection and proper functioning. So let's move to the definition of what are body cavities. The body cavities are spaces within the body that contain, एक तो इनमें क्या होता है, internal organs that support internal organs and that protect internal organs. So these are the spaces that protect, support and contain internal organs. So what are the main body cavities? चार है. First is cranial cavity, second is thoracic cavity, third is abdominal cavity and fourth is pelvic cavity. So cranial cavity is located in the head, then there is neck के बाद है thoracic cavity up to the diaphragm, and इसके बाद है abdominal cavity, and abdominal cavity के बाद है pelvic cavity. So this is cranial cavity, this is thoracic, this one is abdominal, and this is pelvic cavity. These are the four major cavities in which different organs are located. So let us discuss cranial cavity in detail. Cranial cavity में क्या होता है? It contains brain. So contents of the cranial cavity are brain. Second, boundaries are formed by the bones of skull. कल अपने bones पढ़े in the last lecture that कौन सी bones होती है? Frontal होती है, temporal होती है, parietal होती है, occipital and सिफिनाइड इथमॉइड बोन्स होते हैं. सो अब जब हमने पहला लेक्चर पढ़ा एनाटॉमी का, उसमें हमने देखा कि एंटीरियर किसे बोलते हैं, पोस्टीरियर किसे बोलते हैं, लेटरल किसे बोलते हैं, मीडियल किसे बोलते हैं. सिमिलरली जो ये कैविटीज हैं, इनके बाउंड्रीज जो होते हैं उनके वाल्स होते हैं. मेनली कौन से वाल होते हैं? एंटीरियरली, पोस्टीरियर, सुपीरियर, inferior and lateral. These are the 5 walls you should know. कौन से वाल्स? सो सिमिलरली हम देखेंगे क्रेनियल कैविटी में कौन से वाल्स होते हैं. फर्स्ट, एंटीरियरली क्रेनियल कैविटी, it is the anterior wall of the cranial cavity is formed by the frontal bone, that is this bone. Posteriorly, the occipital bone. Laterally, two temporal bones, that is one on right side and one on left side. Superiorly, two parietal bones, they are connected with the sutures, यहाँ से natural sutures. और जो bones of the circle होते हैं, they are non movable, ये move नहीं करते हैं. Inferiorly क्या है? Main parts are the inferiorly main parts are formed by the sphenoid and ethmoid bones, along with the parts of frontal bone, occipital bone, and temporal bone. So inferiorly they are formed by one sphenoid, mainly by one sphenoid and ethmoid bone, but along with the parts of frontal, occipital, and temporal bones. Function, main function is the protection of brain. Simple. Protection of brain. Now coming to the second cavity, that is thoracic cavity. So this cavity is situated in the upper part of the trunk, and boundaries are formed by thoracic cavity and supporting muscles. So trunk किसे हम कहते हैं, अगर हम limbs को बाहर निकालेंगे body से, and lower limbs and upper limbs and head, तो फिर क्या बचता है यहाँ से. So it is located in the upper part of the trunk. So it is located here. Anteriorly, it is formed by the sternum and the costal cartilage of the ribs. So the sternum, it is located in the front of the body, so anteriorly, and costal cartilage of the ribs, and the ribs and the cartilage that connect. This is the cartilage, and this is the ribs that connect ribs with the cartilages. This is the sternum. So sternum and costal cartilages, both sides. So it forms the anterior portion. The sternum, this one, and the costal cartilages. This cartilage and this cartilage. Hyaline cartilage is the costal cartilage that attach to the ribs. Posteriorly, it is formed by thoracic vertebrae. That is from T1 to T12. Superiorly, the structures forming the root of the neck, or we can say thoracic inlet. Thoracic inlet से क्या है, इसमें esophagus, trachea, arteries, veins और nerves निकलती है. So superiorly, it is formed by the root of the neck. Inferiorly, the diaphragm. Diaphragm क्या है? It is a dome-shaped muscle. Laterally, 12 pairs of the ribs. So we can say that the walls of the thoracic cavity, or the boundaries of the thoracic cavities, are anteriorly it is sternum and costal cartilages, laterally ribs, posteriorly the thoracic vertebrae, inferiorly the dome-shaped muscle called diaphragm, superiorly the root of neck. So what are the contents? First is lungs, heart. Heart is actually in between the lungs, but in the thoracic cavity, and we call this as mediastinum, right here. Then trachea, main bronchi, and some major blood vessels such as aorta, superior vena cava, inferior vena cava, pulmonary arteries, and veins. These are the major blood vessels in the thoracic cavity. Also, there is esophagus, there is lymph vessels and some nodes as well. Thymus, some nerves such as phrenic nerves, it supplies the diaphragm, and vagus nerve as well. Now, coming to the third cavity, that is abdominal cavity. So abdominal cavity is the largest cavity, and it is oval shaped. What are the boundaries of abdominal cavity? Anteriorly, the muscles forming the anterior abdominal wall, that is rectus abdominis, transverse abdominis, external oblique, and internal oblique. अभी आप muscles पे focus मत करो. We will read them in detail in the musculoskeletal system. Second, posteriorly, the lumbar vertebrae and the muscles forming the posterior abdominal wall. So anteriorly, it is formed by the muscles forming anterior abdominal wall, and posteriorly the lumbar vertebrae and the muscles forming posterior abdominal wall, like such as psoas major. Superiorly, the diaphragm muscle is this is the thoracic cavity, this is abdominal cavity, this is diaphragm. This is diaphragm. It separates thoracic cavity from abdominal cavity. So superiorly, abdominal cavity boundary is the diaphragm. Inferiorly, the thoracic cavity is bounded by diaphragm. Superiorly, the abdominal cavity is bounded by diaphragm. So Inferiorly, it continues the pelvic cavity, and laterally the lower ribs, that is the floating ones. The floating ones and the parts of the muscles of abdomen. Now coming to the contents. What are the contents in the abdominal cavity? First is digestive system. Digestive system में क्या क्या है? Stomach है, small intestines है, cecum, appendix, large intestine. Most of the large intestine is in abdominal cavity. Some portions are in this pelvic cavity. Liver, gallbladder, and pancreas. Other organs such as spleen, both the kidneys, adrenal glands, and vessels such as abdominal aorta and inferior vena cava. And there are some nerves as well. So these were the contents of the abdominal cavity. Now coming to the last cavity, that is pelvic cavity. Pelvic cavity is roughly funnel shaped. So it is like this, roughly funnel shaped, and it extends from the lower end of the abdominal cavity. Your abdominal cavity, this was diaphragm, this was thoracic cavity, this is abdominal cavity, and for example up to this is abdominal cavity, and this is the pelvic cavity. This is abdomen, this is thoracic cavity, and this is the pelvic cavity. So it extends from the lower end of the abdominal cavity. So pelvic cavity is superiorly continuous with the abdominal cavity. Like the abdominal cavity inferiorly continues with the pelvic cavity, pelvic cavity superiorly continues with the abdominal cavity. So what are the boundaries? Superiorly continues with the abdominal cavity. Inferiorly, the muscles of the pelvic floor. Anteriorly, the pubic bones. Posteriorly, it is formed by the sacrum and coccyx. Laterally, the hip bones. So these are the boundaries of the pelvic cavity. Now, what are the contents of the pelvic cavity? It has some difference. Common, it is both in males as well as in females, like sigmoid colon and rectum and anus. Some loop of small intestine is also present in this pelvic cavity, but not the whole small intestine, and the urinary bladder. Lower parts of the ureters, they are present in both and urethra. In females, there is uterus, ovaries, uterine tubes, cervix, and vagina. These are in females. In males, there is prostate, seminal vesicles, vas deferens, and ejaculatory duct. So these were the contents of this pelvic cavity. These are the common contents that are present in both males and females. These are only present in females, and these are only present in males. So this was all about today's lecture. If you find this lecture helpful, do like the video, subscribe the channel, and share it with your friends and classmates. I will see you in the next lecture.